Why We Sleep. Summary. A wake-up call about sleep. Imagine a vital elixir that makes you live longer, enhances your memory, boosts your creativity, keeps you slim, strengthens your immune system, and even makes you happier and less anxious. It sounds too good to be true, yet it's freely available to all of us. It's called sleep. In Why We Sleep, neuroscientist Matthew Walker delivers a clear message. We are in the midst of a silent sleep loss epidemic, and it's doing profound harm to our minds and bodies. Most adults today do not get the recommended 8 hours of sleep each night. In fact, running on insufficient sleep has almost become a badge of honor in modern society. People proudly say, "I'll sleep when I'm dead," or admire those who seem to hustle around the clock. But as Walker warns, the shorter your sleep, the shorter your life. In other words, not getting enough sleep isn't a harmless habit. It's a serious threat to your health and well-being. Human beings are the only species that will intentionally delay sleep for no adaptive reason, often sacrificing rest to meet work deadlines, study for exams, or even just to watch late-night TV. We've all been there, thinking a few hours of lost sleep won't matter. But science shows even one bad night's sleep has consequences. After being awake for 20 or more hours, your mental impairment is similar to that of being legally drunk. The physical and mental impairments caused by one all-nighter dwarf those caused by missing a meal or a day of exercise. In short, there is no substitute for sleep. It is the single most effective thing we can do each day to reset the health of our brain and body. This summary will explore the key insights from Walker's book in a narrative journey: why we sleep, how sleep works, the amazing benefits it provides, and the terrible costs when we don't get enough. Along the way, we'll also discover what dreams do for us, why modern life makes good sleep so difficult, and what we can do to reclaim this nightly source of vitality. By the end, you might see sleep not as wasted time, but as a powerful ally for a better, healthier life. The rhythm of sleep, our internal clock, and sleep pressure. Sleep may feel like a passive state, but it's guided by active, precise systems in our body. Two main forces determine when you feel sleepy and when you feel alert: circadian rhythm and sleep pressure. Circadian rhythm is essentially your internal clock, a roughly 24-hour cycle programmed into your brain. This clock, located in a region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, keeps time and makes you feel awake or sleepy on a daily schedule. Even without cues like sunrise and sunset, our bodies maintain a rhythm just a bit over 24 hours long. In everyday life, light is the strongest signal that syncs this internal clock to the day-night cycle. Morning light triggers your brain to feel alert. Darkness in the evening triggers the opposite. The hormone melatonin plays a key role here. As night falls, your brain's clock sends a signal for melatonin to be released. Melatonin isn't a sedative, it doesn't knock you out. Instead, think of it as a starter pistol for the night. It tells your body that it's time to transition towards sleep, lowering body temperature and initiating other changes. In essence, melatonin opens the gate to sleep, but it doesn't push you through. This is why taking melatonin can sometimes help with jet lag or shifting your sleep schedule. It cues your internal clock that it's nighttime in the new time zone. The second force is sleep pressure, driven by a chemical called adenosine. From the moment you wake up, adenosine starts accumulating in your brain. The longer you stay awake, the more adenosine builds up, creating a mounting pressure that nudges you towards sleep. By bedtime, levels are high enough that you feel an irresistible sleepiness. During sleep, especially deep sleep, your brain clears away the adenosine. By morning, the pressure is gone and you wake up feeling refreshed if you slept enough. You can think of adenosine as a kind of hourglass timer for your need to sleep. The grains build up while you're awake, and the only way to reset is to sleep and empty the hourglass. So what happens if you fight these natural forces? Many of us do it daily with caffeine. Caffeine, found in coffee and tea, is the world's most popular stimulant. It works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain. Essentially, it plugs into the spots where adenosine would normally dock and signal you're getting sleepy. With caffeine occupying those receptors, the adenosine can't do its job, and you feel more alert than you otherwise would. It's like putting earplugs in your brain to ignore the tiredness signal. This can be useful in the short term. Who hasn't used a cup of coffee to get through the afternoon slump? But it comes at a cost. First, caffeine doesn't stop adenosine from being produced. It just masks the feeling. Once the caffeine wears off, all the adenosine comes rushing in, and you may experience a crash of sleepiness. Second, caffeine has a long life in the body. After about 5 to 7 hours, only half the caffeine from your coffee may be gone. That's the half-life. The remaining half can linger for several more hours. That late afternoon cup of coffee might still be stimulating your brain at midnight, fragmenting your sleep without you realizing it. Even decaf coffee isn't truly caffeine-free. It contains small amounts that can affect sensitive individuals. Walker suggests being mindful of caffeine intake, especially in the second half of the day. If you've ever struggled to fall asleep and not known why, that 4 p.m. espresso could be the culprit. Modern life also throws another wrench into our sleep rhythms: jet lag and irregular schedules. Jet lag is a vivid example of circadian mismatch. If you fly across the country or to another continent, you've effectively moved the clock your body runs on. Suddenly, your internal night and day are out of sync with the local time. You feel sleepy in the middle of the new day and restless at night because your internal clock is still tuned to your original time zone. Eventually, your circadian rhythm will adjust. Our bodies are adaptable, usually shifting about 1 hour per day. But it can take days. During that adjustment period, people often use melatonin supplements strategically to signal to the brain, it's night, start getting sleepy now. When used correctly, melatonin can help realign the circadian rhythm, but it's not a sleeping pill per se. As Walker notes, melatonin is useful for timing, not for the generation of sleep itself. One important question to ask yourself is, am I getting enough sleep? Because our bodies crave alignment between that circadian signal and sleep pressure. If you wake up and still feel you could easily fall back asleep at 10 or 11 a.m., that's a sign you likely haven't had sufficient sleep. Likewise, if you absolutely need caffeine to function by noon, your body is probably self-medicating a state of chronic sleep deprivation. Walker points out these self-checks because many people don't realize they're underslept. We might think feeling groggy in the morning or hitting the snooze button multiple times is normal. It's common, yes, but not normal or optimal. In a well-rested person, the circadian rhythm will naturally boost wakefulness in the morning, helped by sunlight and routine, and the adenosine from the previous day will have been mostly cleared by a full night's sleep. In summary, our drive to sleep is governed by an elegant balance of biology and behavior, the steady tick of our internal clock, and the accumulating weight of sleep pressure. This system evolved to keep us on a healthy sleep-wake cycle in tune with the day-night pattern of Earth. But our choices, like drinking coffee or staying up under bright lights, can either work with or against this system. In the long run, fighting against your natural sleep rhythm is a losing battle. The more we understand these forces, the better we can arrange our lives to cooperate with them, aiming to wind down when our body expects to, and giving ourselves the chance to sleep as long as we need. After all, sleep is not an indulgence. It's a biological necessity, just like eating or breathing. NREM and REM, the stages of sleep. When we drift off to sleep, we don't just go from awake to off like a light switch. Sleep is a dynamic journey that cycles through different stages, each with its own characteristics and functions. The two broad types of sleep are NREM, non-rapid eye movement, and REM, rapid eye movement sleep. Throughout the night, Our brains will cycle between these two types in a roughly 90-minute rhythm, repeating that cycle about 5 times in an 8-hour sleep. It's like a yin and yang dance all night long, with NREM and REM taking turns. Think of NREM sleep as the quieter, deeper form of sleep. It has multiple stages, from N1, the lightest sleep, down to N3, which is often called deep sleep or slow wave sleep. In NREM, your brain waves slow down dramatically, especially in deep NREM. If you were to look at a sleeper in deep NREM, you'd see very little movement, perhaps just some gentle breathing. The body is relaxed, blood pressure drops, and brain activity has a signature slow, high-amplitude pattern. Those are the slow waves detected on EEG. This is the stage where it's hardest to be woken up, and if you are, you feel disoriented or groggy. Ever had someone wake you from a dead sleep and you felt you didn't know where you were? That was likely deep NREM. Now contrast that with REM sleep, which is in many ways the opposite. REM is the stage in which we do most of our vivid dreaming. The brain becomes highly active. In fact, if you measure brain activity during REM, parts of it are almost as electrically busy as when we're awake. The eyes dart back and forth under the lids, hence rapid eye movement, and breathing and heart rate become more erratic. Remarkably, during REM sleep, our bodies enter a state of atonia, which means the voluntary muscles are paralyzed, with the exception of muscles like the eyes and diaphragm for breathing. This paralysis is nature's way of protecting us from ourselves. It stops us from acting out our dreams. If you dream you're running or fighting, your body would actually try to carry out those actions, which could be dangerous. So thank your brain for essentially strapping you down during REM. A small glitch in this system is why sometimes you might have a brief experience of sleep paralysis. When waking up or falling asleep, your brain wakes up, but your body hasn't gotten the memo to move yet, which can be frightening, but usually lasts only seconds. These stages play out in cycles. In the first half of the night, NREM, particularly deep NREM, dominates. You get most of your slow-wave sleep early in the night. In the latter half, REM periods become longer and more frequent, with lighter NREM in between. By early morning, just before waking, you might almost be alternating between lighter NREM and REM only. This pattern is important. If you cut your sleep short, guess which type of sleep you're most likely to lose out on? The REM-heavy late morning stages. Similarly, if you go to bed very late in the night, say 3 a.m., you may have missed out on some of the deep NREM that naturally likes to happen in the early night. Every part of the night serves a purpose, so routinely missing any one part by sleeping too little or at odd hours can leave you with an imbalance. You can visualize the night's sleep stages like a roller coaster profile. Shortly after you fall asleep, you plunge down into deep NREM, stay there for a while, then climb up toward REM, then back down, and so on. Each 90-minute cycle has a chunk of NREM and a chunk of REM. Early cycles big NREM, tiny REM, later cycles more REM, lighter NREM. This pattern is why every hour of sleep isn't equal. 7 hours is not just 1 hour less than 8. It could disproportionately cut 20 to 25% of your REM. So what is each stage for? Walker describes a helpful way to think about it. During the day, when we are awake, our brain is in reception mode, constantly receiving new experiences and information. During NREM sleep, particularly deep sleep, the brain goes into reflection mode. It reviews and strengthens the memories and skills learned during the day, effectively storing the important parts and pruning the unimportant. Then, during REM sleep, the brain shifts to integration mode, where it takes those new memories and blends them with all our past experiences, finding connections and even inspiring creative insights. In other words, NREM is for storing and saving, while REM is for mixing and creative connecting. We'll explore these functions more in the next sections, but it's amazing to realize that different stages of sleep have different jobs. One is like an archivist, organizing the files you collected today, and the other is like an artist, brainstorming new ideas from the collage of information in your mind. An interesting evolutionary question is, why have these distinct stages? REM sleep in particular is bizarre. If an alien observed a human in REM, they'd see an immobile body with flickering eyes, irregular breathing, and a wildly active brain that's disconnected from reality. It turns out REM sleep is more pronounced in more developed brains. Mammals and birds have something like REM. Reptiles have less. Insects show rest, but not clear REM. Humans notably have a lot of REM sleep relative to many other animals, especially for our size. That suggests REM sleep offers benefits that have grown as our brains evolved, like emotional regulation and creativity, which we'll discuss. Another fun fact: how did scientists first discover REM sleep? In the 1950s, a graduate student noticed that sleeping babies sometimes had periods where their eyes darted under their eyelids. Subsequent research confirmed that these were periods of intense brain activity and dreaming. It was a revolutionary finding. Before that, people thought sleep was a uniform switch-off. Instead, we learned it's a complex alternation of states. This discovery also helped explain phenomena like dreaming and sleepwalking, which actually happens in deep NREM, not REM, which is why sleepwalkers aren't acting out dreams. They're in dreamless deep sleep and performing routine actions unconsciously. Finally, it's worth noting how protective and powerful sleep cycles are. The brain will strive to get what it's missing. If you deprive someone mostly of REM sleep, say by repeatedly disturbing them each time they enter REM, the next opportunity it gets, the brain will dive more quickly into REM and spend extra time there, a phenomenon called REM rebound. The same is true of deep NREM. This underscores that both are biologically necessary. If one night you lose a lot of RM, perhaps due to alcohol or an alarm that woke you early, your body will try to get more REM on a following night. However, it's not a perfect compensation. Some lost benefits cannot be fully regained. Walker emphasizes a sobering point. You can't catch up on lost sleep the way we wish. If you skimp on sleep during the week and try to binge sleep on the weekend, you won't fully repair all the deficits accumulated. The healthiest approach is consistent, adequate sleep. To sum up, sleep is not a light switch but a symposium of states. Each night your brain performs a symphony in two movements, the slow, deep notes of NREM and the lively, surreal melody of REM. Both movements are vital for the harmony of our mental and physical health. Understanding that we need both in balance helps underscore why getting enough total sleep, and at the right times, is so crucial. It's not just about feeling less tired. It's about giving your brain the full range of sleep stages it evolved to have, so it can do all the nighttime work that keeps you functional, healthy, and sane. Sleep in every species, an evolutionary imperative. If sleep is so wonderful and useful, an obvious question is, why did it evolve to begin with? From one perspective, sleep seems like a dumb idea. When you're asleep in the wild, you're not finding food, not finding mates, and you're highly vulnerable to predators or dangers. Lying immobile for hours could be a fatal mistake, unless it is absolutely necessary. The fact that evolution has not eliminated sleep, but rather preserved it in every species studied, tells us that sleep serves an essential, non-negotiable function. In fact, no creature that we know of has truly dispensed with sleep. From humans to horses, bats to birds, dogs to dolphins, and even tiny fruit flies and microscopic worms all show periods of quiescence that look very much like sleep, with lowered responsiveness and specific brain or activity patterns. Simply put, if an animal has a nervous system, it needs rest. Mother Nature has deemed sleep so important that she's willing to risk us being defenseless for a while to get it. The diversity of sleep in the animal kingdom is fascinating. For instance, consider dolphins and some species of whales. They're mammals like us, but they can't afford to be completely unconscious underwater. They drown. So they evolved a brilliant workaround, unihemispheric sleep. This means one half of their brain goes into deep sleep, while the other half stays awake enough to keep the animal coming up for air and monitoring the environment. After a while, they swap. The awake side goes to sleep, and the previously sleeping side wakes up. It's as if their brain takes shifts so that the animal never has to fully lose consciousness. Some species of birds do something similar, especially when they're in flocks or on long migratory flights. They can let one hemisphere of the brain nod off, or even take micro-sleeps of just seconds at a time to get the rest they need without completely letting their guard down. Birds that sleep in a row will even have the birds at the ends keep the outer eye open and half brain alert, while the inner eye is closed, keeping watch for the group. Then there's the range of how much different animals sleep. A little brown bat holds the record for one of the longest sleepers, logging around 19 hours of sleep a day. Maybe not a surprise, since it spends its waking 5 hours frantically catching insects in the night sky. On the other extreme, giraffes and elephants get by on as little as 4 to 5 hours of sleep per day, often broken into short naps. Yet even they cannot eliminate that core need. They must accumulate those few hours, or they suffer consequences. Dogs and cats, as pet owners see, sleep a lot, 12, 15 hours in a day, often in naps scattered around. And yes, even insects have a rest state. Fruit flies can be sleep deprived and will show cognitive and survival deficits if they don't get their rest, and they too will sleep more heavily, a rebound, after being deprived. Why do we care about how animals sleep? These comparisons highlight that while the amount and pattern of sleep may differ, the presence of sleep is universal. Even life forms that would benefit from not needing sleep simply cannot eliminate it. That's a loud statement. Whatever sleep is doing, it's so vital that evolution has found ways to make it safer, like unihemispheric sleep, but never to remove it. As Walker quips, if sleep wasn't absolutely essential, it would be the biggest evolutionary mistake ever made. Moreover, some of the evolutionary record hints that better sleep may have contributed to the rise of more complex brains. Take humans and our primate relatives. We actually sleep less than many other primates. Some monkeys sleep 10, 12 hours. However, humans get a larger portion of REM and deep NREM, and we have very efficient sleep. One theory is that when early humans started sleeping securely, perhaps once we mastered fire and could fend off predators, or when we started sleeping in groups or on raised platforms or beds, it allowed us to enter deeper, more prolonged REM stages. Our ancestors might have first slept in trees like other apes, less safe, perhaps shorter bouts of REM, but later learned to make safe sleeping sites, caves or structures, where they could sleep more soundly. This improved sleep quality could have then supercharged memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and creativity, giving an edge in survival and cultural advancement. In that sense, sleep could be seen as the secret weapon that helped sculpt the human mind. The enormous creativity and social complexity of humans might be partially indebted to the rich REM sleep we enjoy. It fine-tuned our emotional circuits and problem-solving abilities over evolutionary time. Another important evolutionary lesson from Walker's research: you cannot cheat sleep without payback. Researchers attempted to keep laboratory rats awake indefinitely. The rats died after about 2 weeks of total sleep deprivation. They simply deteriorated, their immune systems failed, their bodies could not regulate temperature, and they developed sores and metabolic dysfunctions. For humans, total sleep deprivation will also ultimately be fatal, though it's thankfully not a common scenario. There is a very rare human disease called fatal familial insomnia, where due to a genetic mutation, a middle-aged person gradually loses the ability to sleep. Over months, they descend into confusion, hallucinations, weight loss, dementia, and eventually the complete shutdown of body and mind. It invariably ends in death within a couple of years. While extreme, this condition tragically illustrates that without sleep, the human body cannot survive. Most of us won't experience such an absolute lack of sleep, but many of us flirt with chronic partial sleep deprivation, consistently not getting enough. Evolution didn't design us with a big sleep bank where we can store hours in advance or fully make up hours later. We can recover to some extent. You'll sleep longer after a bad night, but it's never 100%. If you only sleep 4 hours tonight and tomorrow you manage 8, you don't erase all the fallout from the prior short night. Some processes that should have happened last night simply didn't happen. As Walker says, lost sleep is lost. There is no refund or restoration for certain effects. Over weeks and months, this can accumulate into serious deficits and health issues, even if you never pull an all-nighter. It's like spending a little more money than you earn each day. Eventually, the debt catches up with you with interest. From an evolutionary perspective, our ancestors lived by the rising and setting of the sun, not by clocks or glowing screens. They likely slept more in tune with their biology. Interestingly, in pre-industrial or indigenous cultures studied today who have no electricity, adults often sleep biphasically. They sleep for a long period at night, maybe 7-8 hours, and also have a nap or rest in the early afternoon, siesta, when the day is hottest. This afternoon nap is a natural dip in alertness built into our circadian rhythm. Most of us feel a wave of sleepiness mid-afternoon. In places like modern Greece, certain islands, where siestas are still common, people, especially the elderly, actually show improved longevity. Walker notes that men on such a Greek island have a significantly higher chance of reaching age 90 than those on the mainland without siesta culture. Meanwhile, in our modern industrial societies, we mostly have shifted to a monophasic pattern. One long sleep at night, and often not even long enough. Perhaps our bodies still crave that biphasic pattern that evolution gave us, hence the widespread drowsiness after lunch. Skipping the nap and then also shortening the night's sleep is a double whammy. In summary, sleep is an ancient biological necessity. It has been conserved across species because whatever it gives is simply non-negotiable for life. Every animal does it in some form, and humans are no exception. Our modern challenges might trick us into thinking we can override biology with willpower or technology, but the truth is, our need for sleep is as primal as our need for food and water. Understanding this can help us respect our limits. Instead of viewing sleep as wasted time, consider it like going back to the well to draw the water of life each night. Evolution has entrusted each of us with the responsibility to refill and recharge regularly. If we do, we thrive. If we don't, sooner or later we pay the price. Changing sleep patterns across our lifespan. Sleep isn't one size fits all across our lives. We've all observed how babies seem to sleep all the time. Teenagers love to sleep in, and older folks often wake up at the crack of dawn. These patterns are not random. They reflect the changing architecture and needs of sleep as we age. Let's take a brief tour of how sleep evolves from infancy to old age. Infancy and childhood. From the moment we enter the world, sleep is our dominant state. Newborn babies can sleep 14 to 17 hours a day in short bouts around the clock. Interestingly, a newborn's sleep is very different in structure. They spend about half of their sleep time in REM, active dreaming sleep. If you've ever watched an infant sleep, you might see them twitch, smile, or move their eyes under the eyelids, evidence of that abundant REM sleep. Why so much REM? One theory is that REM sleep plays a role in brain development. Babies are absorbing massive amounts of information and their brains are wiring up at an incredible rate. REM sleep might be helping to build and connect neural circuits. It's like an internal playground where the brain can simulate experiences and strengthen connections, possibly aiding in learning to see, move, and understand the world. Babies also have a lot of deep NREM sleep, which may help with consolidating all the new things they learn each day. As children grow into toddlers and school-age kids, total sleep time gradually decreases, but it's still higher than for adults. Young kids might need 10, 12 hours of sleep per 24 hours, including naps for toddlers. By the time children reach 5, 10 years old, they usually no longer nap and might sleep roughly 10 hours at night. Childhood is actually the time of deepest sleep in terms of NREM. If you record brain waves of a 7-year-old in deep sleep, you'll see huge, slow waves, much more intense than what is seen in adults. Children often sleep so deeply that thunder or bright lights won't wake them. This deep sleep is thought to be crucial for learning and development. For instance, research shows that as kids learn language or motor skills, deep sleep helps cement those abilities. In fact, specific changes in sleep patterns often precede developmental milestones. For example, before a baby's brain is about to go through a leap, like saying their first words or walking, you often see a surge in certain types of sleep oscillations or intensity of deep sleep. It's as if the brain is using sleep to gear up for the next big advancement. The teenage years. Are teenagers often maligned as lazy for wanting to sleep in? But if we look at their biology, teens have a real shift in circadian rhythm that is beyond their control. During puberty, the internal clock in adolescence naturally delays, meaning they become biologically inclined to fall asleep later at night, 11 p.m. or midnight rather than 9 or 10 p.m., and consequently wake up later in the morning. This is not just attitude, it's hormones and brain chemistry changing the schedule. A teenager still needs about 8 to 10 hours of sleep for optimal functioning. Actually, some evidence says closer to 9, 10 for full benefit at that age, since their brains and bodies are growing rapidly. But what typically happens? High school start times in many places are extremely early. Sometimes classes begin at 7:30 a.m., with students up by 6. This means many teens are chronically sleep-deprived, forced to wake in what for them is essentially the middle of the night. Walker is particularly passionate about this, citing that early school times are a serious threat to adolescent health and learning. When teens don't get enough sleep, it's not surprising that they struggle with mood swings, impulsivity, and attention. Their brains are being deprived of vital REM and deep sleep. Lack of sleep in teens has been linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and even risk-taking behaviors. Also importantly, drowsy driving accidents are a big issue for high schoolers who have just started driving. Asking a 16-year-old to drive to school at 6:30 a.m. when their body wants to be asleep is a recipe for disaster, and indeed there are many accidents due to teens literally nodding off at the wheel in the early morning. The good news is that when schools have experimented with starting just an hour later, the results are dramatic. Better grades, improved mental health, fewer car crashes, better attendance, and even happier teachers, since a classroom of more awake students is a better learning environment. We'll touch more on this in the societal change section, but it's important to recognize that a teenager's penchant for late mornings is biologically wired, not simply laziness or defiance. Adulthood. In our 20s through midlife, most of us settle into a pattern where our circadian rhythm is stable and we need roughly 7 to 9 hours of sleep. There are individual differences. Some people are true morning larks who get sleepy early and wake up at dawn. Others are night owls who don't feel tired until late and struggle to wake early. These tendencies, called chronotypes, are largely genetic. About 30 to 40% of people are morning types, 30% are evening types, and the rest in between. Society's 9 to 5 schedule tends to favor morning types, leaving night owls at a disadvantage and often chronically underslept as they try to conform. As adults, while our sleep might be more self-directed, no parents setting bedtime, we often start losing sleep due to lifestyle pressures. College students infamously pull all-nighters. Young professionals stay up late working or socializing. New parents face baby-induced sleep disruption, which is its own special challenge. Anyone who has cared for a newborn knows the meaning of sleep deprivation profoundly. Through adulthood, our sleep can seesaw with life events, stressful job or family issues might cause insomnia bouts, parenthood can reduce sleep, etc. But biologically, until around age 50 or so, if healthy, we should be able to get solid sleep if we prioritize it. Middle age and beyond. As people enter their 50s, 60s and older, changes in sleep are common. One big change is that deep NREM sleep starts to decline. The brain's ability to generate those big slow waves diminishes somewhat with age. This means a 60-year-old might only get half the deep sleep at night that they used to have at 20. They also might find they wake up more frequently at night, so-called sleep fragmentation. This could be due to a lighter, more fragile sleep that's easily disturbed, or other age-related issues like more frequent need to use the bathroom, aches and pains, or medications that interfere with sleep. Many older adults report difficulty staying asleep through the night and early morning awakenings. For example, falling asleep at 10 p.m. but waking up at 4 or 5 a.m., unable to continue sleeping. Part of that is an advance in circadian rhythm. The clock shifts earlier again, almost like a second swing towards early to bed, early to rise. So yes, grandma's tendency to nod off in the armchair at 9 p.m. and pop up before sunrise has a physiological basis. An unfortunate myth is that older people need less sleep. Walker strongly refutes this. Older adults need just as much sleep as younger adults. The need doesn't drop to 5 hours or anything. It remains around 7, 8 hours for health. It's just that many older adults cannot get that much due to the changes in their sleep biology or health conditions. This inability to generate enough sleep can have consequences. Poor sleep in the elderly is linked to memory issues, poorer concentration, and even a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. In fact, one of the hot areas of research is how chronic sleep loss or lack of deep sleep might contribute to the accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, which are hallmarks of Alzheimer's. During deep NREM sleep, the brain's waste disposal system, the glymphatic system, is most active, cleaning out metabolic debris, including amyloid. So if an older person isn't getting much deep sleep, their brain might be less efficient at this cleaning, possibly accelerating cognitive decline. This is a double-edged sword because Alzheimer's disease itself further disrupts sleep. Plaques build up in sleep-regulating regions, creating a vicious cycle. Also in older age, the sleep efficiency drops. Sleep efficiency means the percentage of time in bed that one is actually asleep. A healthy young person might have 90 to 95% sleep efficiency. They fall asleep fairly quickly and stay asleep. An older adult might experience something like 70 to 80% efficiency, spending more time awake in bed. That can lead to frustration and the feeling of insomnia. As we'll discuss later, sometimes behavioral techniques and changes in environment can help improve that even in older folks. One interesting change too, dream sleep, REM, might become a bit less robust with age, though it's less studied. Some older people report fewer dreams or less vivid ones. Whether REM significantly declines or just fragments is still being researched. However, maintaining healthy REM is likely important for emotional health even in later years. Putting it all together, over a lifetime, our sleep is like a moving target. A baby's polyphasic, REM-rich sleep gradually consolidates into a child's deep, plentiful sleep, which then shifts to the night owl pattern of adolescence, stabilizes in adulthood, though often under attack by our busy schedules, and then becomes lighter and more fraught with awakenings in old age. Each stage of life has its own sleep challenges. For babies and kids, it might be learning to sleep through the night. For teens, it's fighting societal schedules. For adults, it's balancing work, family demands, and stress. For seniors, it's dealing with the body's changes and medical issues that disturb sleep. Walker's core message is that at every age, sleep is crucial. We should protect it for everyone. Ensure infants and children get their developmental sleep, limiting late-night screen time for kids, for instance, or keeping consistent bedtimes. Allow teens to sleep enough, perhaps by advocating for school schedules that align better with biology. Encourage adults to not sacrifice sleep for productivity myths, and help older people find strategies to improve sleep quality through good sleep hygiene or medical interventions if needed for issues like apnea. Sleep is not one size fits all through life, but it remains one vital need fits all. We adapt the patterns, but never grow out of the need to sleep. In fact, one might say we don't outgrow sleep. We grow into it, and then we try to hold on to it as aging makes it more elusive. Appreciating these changes can also make us more empathetic. For example, not chastising a teenager for sleeping late on weekends. They're probably recovering from an overly short school week sleep schedule. Or being patient with an older parent or grandparent who nods off in the evening. Their body might be telling them something their younger days didn't. In all cases, the goal is the same. Find a way to get the sleep your brain and body need, because every stage of life yields its best outcomes when given the proper rest. Sleep and the brain, memory, learning, and mood. Why exactly do we need sleep? One of the most immediate answers is for our brain to function optimally. Sleep is like a master reset and enhancement switch for the brain's various operations. Walker's book dives deeply into the benefits of sleep for the brain, from sharpening memory to stabilizing our emotions. Let's explore some of these mental benefits that make sleep truly the brain's best friend. Learning and memory, before and after effect. If you have a big exam or presentation, you might be tempted to stay up all night cramming. Science suggests that's a very bad idea. Sleep provides a double benefit for learning, both before learning something and after learning it. Before learning, sleep essentially prepares your brain to absorb new information. Think of your brain, specifically a region called the hippocampus, as a whiteboard or an inbox that collects new memories during the day. As you go about your day, experiences are being temporarily stored. But the capacity of this inbox is limited. If it's full, new information might not stick. What sleep, especially deep NREM sleep, does the night before is to clear out and refresh that inbox, transferring information to long-term storage in the cortex. This means after a solid night's sleep, your brain has more room to take in new data, like a sponge dried out and ready to soak up more. Experiments show that people who sleep well before a learning session can absorb facts, word lists, math, etc., much better than those who were kept awake. After learning something, the role of sleep shifts to consolidation. Now, the new memories need to be solidified and integrated into the brain's neural architecture. Sleep, both deep NREM and REM, plays crucial roles here. In the first half of the night, deep NREM sleep acts like a file transfer process. It moves the day's memories from short-term storage, hippocampus, to long-term storage, various parts of the cortex. It's as if during NREM the brain is saying, let's save this to the hard drive and clear the USB stick, hippocampus. That's why students who get a good night's sleep after studying remember the material better in the days and weeks ahead compared to those who stayed up or had disrupted sleep. Sleep literally helps hit the save button on those new memories, protecting them from being lost. But beyond just saving, sleep after learning also strengthens and enhances memories. Particularly, REM sleep seems to take those newly stored memories and do two things. It associates them with other existing knowledge, and it prunes out the less important details. This might be why after sleeping, sometimes you can see the bigger picture of something you learned, whereas before sleep you were lost in the weeds of details. REM sleep can extract patterns and rules. People often get insights into problems after sleeping. There was a famous study where subjects had to solve a tricky math problem with a hidden rule. Only some people figured out the rule during the test. But when researchers let participants sleep and then retested them, those who slept were more than twice as likely to discover the shortcut than those who didn't sleep. Sleep, and particularly dream-filled REM, had been working on the problem unconsciously, motor skills and habits. It's not just book learning that benefits. Physical skills do too. If you practice a new piano scale for an hour or spend a day learning a sport technique, you will do it better the next day after sleep, even if you don't practice further. This is because the brain continues to practice in a way during sleep, especially during certain stages of NREM. Walker himself conducted research showing that the last 2 hours of an 8-hour night, rich in late-stage NREM and REM, were especially critical for improving motor skill accuracy and speed. So pulling an all-nighter and then trying to perform a complex skill is a recipe for poor performance. Athletes and musicians have taken this to heart. Many elite performers ensure they get plentiful sleep to consolidate the day's training. In fact, some Olympic teams work with sleep scientists to schedule more sleep for athletes in training and before competitions, knowing it can significantly enhance outcomes. The advice, sleep on it before a big performance or exam, is scientifically sound. Focus, attention, and creativity. Sleep is the foundation of attention span and concentration. Even a single night of partial sleep loss can make it much harder to focus. We've all experienced the fuzzy-headed feeling after a poor night's sleep. You're easily distracted, reading the same sentence over and over, or missing obvious details. In professions that require vigilance, like truck driving, air traffic control, or medicine, sleep loss can be disastrous. Walker highlights that micro-sleeps, very brief moments of sleep that your brain slips into when extremely tired, can cause accidents. If you're driving at 60 miles per hour and have a 3-second micro-sleep, that's like being unconscious for 100 yards on the road. It's no wonder that drowsy driving is a massive cause of accidents and fatalities. Some estimates put it as more deadly than drunk driving. Unlike drunk driving, though, falling asleep at the wheel is often not preceded by as much awareness. People don't realize, I'm about to fall asleep. It just happens. One tragedy Walker emphasizes, a sleepy brain can't accurately gauge how sleepy it is. People think they're doing fine on little sleep, but tests prove their reaction times and judgment are severely impaired. We have a built-in lack of self-awareness when sleep-deprived, which is why so many proudly say, I only need 5 hours, I'm fine, while their cognitive tests show they are far from fine. On a happier note, creativity is one of the jewels of a well-slept brain. That aha moment often comes in the morning after a problem's been incubating overnight. During REM dreams, the brain can make connections between loosely related pieces of information, sometimes solving problems without conscious effort. Many great artists, writers, and scientists have credited dreams or the period upon waking as the source of breakthroughs. For example, the structure of the benzene molecule, the invention of the sewing machine needle design, and various music compositions are famous cases where the solution popped up in a dream or upon awakening. By keeping our brain nimble and flexible, sleep sets the stage for innovation. Emotional stability. Another major function of sleep, particularly REM sleep, is maintaining our emotional balance. Life can be emotionally challenging. One day might bring an upsetting argument, a stressful job situation, or a heartbreaking loss. Sleep acts as a kind of nightly therapy to help us cope. In the section on dreams, we'll cover the therapy aspect in more detail, but even on a general level, getting a full night's rest helps reset our emotional calibration. Without enough sleep, the brain's amygdala, the fear and emotion center, becomes about 60% more reactive. This means little annoyances become big deals, and controlling impulses or anger becomes harder. Think of a tired toddler having a meltdown over the wrong color cup as adults. We might not throw ourselves on the floor screaming, but our mood control isn't that far off when we're sleep deprived. We become more irritable, anxious, and prone to mood swings. Over time, chronic sleep loss can contribute to or worsen conditions like depression and anxiety. In fact, one of the commonalities found in patients with mood disorders is disturbed sleep. It's not just a symptom, it can be a cause as well. Improving sleep often improves mood and emotional resilience. Conversely, adequate sleep makes us more emotionally intelligent. We can read others' facial expressions more accurately, and we're less likely to interpret neutral events as negative. A well-rested brain has a calmer amygdala, moderated by the prefrontal cortex, the logical executive part of the brain. Essentially, when you've slept enough, your wise mind stays in control. When you haven't, your emotional mind runs hot. Have you ever noticed everything feels a bit doom and gloom after a bad night's sleep? Problems seem larger, worries amplify. Then after sleeping well, perspective returns. That's the emotional recalibration benefit of sleep. Memory maintenance and forgetting. While sleep helps us remember the things that matter, it also helps us forget the things that don't. Our brains are inundated with stimuli and facts each day. We can't possibly retain it all without clutter. Sleep, especially NREM, appears to clear out the noise, trivial or redundant data, making room for important memories. It's a bit like a computer's disk cleanup. This is crucial for preventing overload and maintaining memory quality. Also, in cases of extremely emotional or traumatic memories, REM sleep helps strip away the visceral emotional pain from the memories over time, allowing us to recall the event without feeling the full flood of initial emotions. This is a protective mechanism to help us move on after painful experiences. More on this in the dreaming section, neurological housekeeping. On a cellular level, sleep provides a time for the brain to do maintenance. Recent research discovered the brain's glymphatic system, a waste clearance system that primarily activates during deep NREM sleep. It flushes cerebrospinal fluid through brain tissue, cleaning out metabolic waste like beta amyloid, a protein linked to Alzheimer's when it accumulates into plaques. So each night of good sleep is a little scrub for the brain, potentially reducing the risk of plaque buildup. If you consistently don't get enough deep sleep, you might be leaving some trash in the brain each day, which can eventually contribute to cognitive decline. This is a likely reason why poor sleep in midlife is associated with higher dementia risk later on. Use it or lose it for memories. An astonishing finding Walker mentions: if you learn something and then do not sleep the following night, the opportunity to consolidate that memory is lost and cannot be regained by catching up on sleep later. The brain seems to have a critical window to cement things. Miss that window, and even if you sleep a lot in subsequent nights, you won't magically fix the weakened memory. This is huge for students. All-night study sessions that eliminate sleep may cause you to remember much less than if you studied a bit less but slept. It's also relevant for any skill training spacing practice with proper sleep each night, beats cramming all practice together without sleep. Self-control and decision-making. With enough sleep, our prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and self-control, functions well. With lack of sleep, we see reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which means poorer judgment, more impulsivity, and flawed decision-making. This has been observed in professions like medicine and military. Sleep-deprived individuals make riskier, more irrational decisions, often without realizing their thinking is impaired. It also affects ethical decisions. One experiment found people are more likely to lie or cheat when sleep deprived, possibly because the moral restraint provided by a fully functioning frontal lobe is weakened. Walker sums it up by saying no facet of the brain's performance is spared by sleep deprivation. From attention and learning to memory and emotional well-being, everything deteriorates when we cut sleep short. But the opposite is encouraging. When you prioritize and protect your sleep, you're giving yourself a mental superpower. You learn more efficiently, have sharper focus, make better decisions, remember both facts and life events more clearly, and maintain a more stable mood. It's almost as if sleep is an investment that pays daily dividends in productivity and mental health. One fascinating angle he mentions is the sleepless elite, those rare individuals, roughly 1% or less of the population, who carry a specific gene mutation that allows them to naturally sleep only about 6 hours a night without impairment. These people are often celebrated in society. We hear about CEOs who run on 5-6 hours. But Walker cautions, unless you have that very rare genetic advantage, you are most likely accumulating deficits if you routinely sleep that little, no matter how successful or energetic you feel in the moment. It's similar to lottery winners, rare and not a model to emulate for the average person. The vast majority of human brains need around 8 hours of sleep to function at their best and to guard against mental decline in the long term. In essence, sleep is the groundwork of cognitive and emotional intelligence. If wakefulness is the time to perform and experience, then sleep is the time to upgrade your neural software, back up your data, and balance your emotional ledger. Deprive yourself of that, and you operate the next day and beyond with outdated, glitchy mental software and an overtaxed, perhaps overheated neural hard drive. Give yourself the full measure of sleep, and you reboot refreshed with improved code, ready to take on the world with clarity and creativity. It's a gift we should give our brain every night. Sleep and the body, health, illness, and longevity. Sleep doesn't just rejuvenate the mind, it's the body's master repair and regulation time as well. While we rest, our body is hard at work healing tissues, balancing hormones, and fortifying our immune system. Why we sleep makes a compelling case that skimping on sleep can wreak havoc on nearly every organ and physiological system. Let's delve into how sleep, or lack thereof, influences our physical health from our heart to our waistline to our very DNA. The immune system. Your nightly defense boost. One of the most immediate impacts of sleep loss hits our immune system. Think of sleep as the time when our immune army gets restocked and briefed for battle. During deep sleep, the body increases production of certain immune cells. When you don't get enough sleep, that army is depleted and less coordinated. Walker cites remarkable research. Just one night of only 4 hours of sleep can cause a 70% drop in natural killer cells the next day. Natural killer cells are a type of white blood cell that patrols for viral infections and even early cancer cells, destroying them. A 70% reduction essentially leaves you far more vulnerable to illnesses. This helps explain why people who are run down and not sleeping well often get sick after exposure to a cold or flu. In experiments where volunteers were exposed to the common cold virus, those who slept less than 5 hours a night in the preceding week were 4 times more likely to catch the cold compared to those who slept more than 7 hours. Basically, good sleepers had stronger immune resistance. Poor sleep doesn't just increase your chances of catching an infection. It also can make vaccines less effective because your immune system doesn't respond as robustly to produce antibodies. For example, people who were sleep deprived in the week around a flu shot generated only about half the antibodies in response, compared to well-rested folks, meaning they might not be as protected. And in the realm of serious diseases, because cancer cells can emerge in the body daily and need our immune system to snuff them out. Chronic sleep deprivation could potentially increase cancer risk by weakening that surveillance. In fact, large studies show that people who habitually sleep less than 6 hours have higher rates of certain cancers, colon cancer, breast cancer, etc. The World Health Organization has even classified night shift work, which usually involves chronic sleep disruption and circadian misalignment, as a probable carcinogen because of these associations with cancer incidence. The immune hits keep coming. Another study found that young men who slept only 4 hours a night for a few nights had immune profiles similar to much older individuals, as if aging their immune function. The flip side, when you're ill or injured, your body demands more sleep. You know the feeling of being extra sleepy when fighting off a bug. That's the body wisdom at work. Extra sleep drives immune cells into action and speeds recovery. So if you're feeling sick, one of the best medicines is to sleep a lot. Cardiovascular health. A rested heart is a healthy heart. Every night during healthy sleep, especially deep NREM, our heart rate and blood pressure dip. This is like a respite for the heart and blood vessels. Skipping sleep deprives the cardiovascular system of this break. Over time, that can lead to consistently higher blood pressure and strain on the heart. People who shortchange sleep have a significantly higher risk of developing hypertension, high blood pressure, and coronary heart disease. There's a dramatic natural experiment that illustrates sleep's impact on the heart. Daylight savings time changes. In the spring, when we lose 1 hour of sleep, hospitals see about a 24% increase in heart attacks the following day. In the fall, when people gain an hour of sleep, heart attacks drop by 21% the next day. That 1 hour change across millions reveals how sensitive our cardiovascular system is to sleep. Similarly, traffic accident statistics show a spike after the spring clock change, likely due to groggier drivers, and a decrease after the fall change. Sleep helps regulate stress hormones like cortisol. With chronic insufficient sleep, cortisol can remain elevated at night and overall, which keeps blood pressure higher and promotes a state of arousal that wears the cardiovascular system. Chronic inflammation, linked to heart disease, is also elevated by poor sleep. Another angle, sleep apnea, a disorder where breathing repeatedly stops during sleep, causing awakenings, is notorious for causing high blood pressure and thickening of the heart walls because of the stress of low oxygen and interrupted sleep. Even if you don't have apnea, voluntarily cutting sleep can mimic some of these stress effects. The bottom line from studies: regularly sleeping less than 6 hours per night makes you far more likely to have calcification in your arteries, a precursor to heart disease, and it increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Conversely, folks who consistently get around 7-8 hours have better heart health. It's worth noting there is also evidence that extremely long sleep, over 9.5-10 hours regularly, correlates with health issues, but that's often thought to reflect an underlying illness causing the extra sleep need, not that long sleep itself is harmful. For most, more sleep, up to a point, is beneficial, not harmful. Metabolism and weight, sleep and your waistline. If you're watching your weight or trying to avoid diabetes, sleep is as important as diet and exercise. When we're sleep deprived, several things happen that can cause weight gain and metabolic issues. First, hunger hormones get skewed. Ghrelin, the hormone that tells you I'm hungry, increases, while leptin, the hormone that signals I'm full, decreases. In one study, people who slept 5 hours had nearly 30% more ghrelin and 15% less leptin compared to when they slept 8 hours. No wonder you raid the fridge or crave junk food. When you're tired, your body is chemically pushing you to eat more, particularly carbs and sweets for quick energy. You might notice after a poor night's sleep, you want that donut or a big bowl of pasta. That's the hormone imbalance plus the brain seeking easy calories to stay awake. Second, lack of sleep dulls the higher brain functions that would normally help with restraint and decision-making. The part of the brain that resists impulses, the prefrontal cortex, goes a bit offline when sleepy, while the deeper brain that desires rewards, the nucleus accumbens, etc., stays active. This means your ability to resist that slice of cake is weaker, and the desire for it is stronger. Studies have shown that sleep-deprived individuals given free access to food will consume hundreds of calories more per day than when they're well rested, often choosing unhealthy options. Over time, that can lead to weight gain. Third, sleep affects your metabolic rate and insulin sensitivity. In a landmark experiment, young, healthy adults were limited to about 4-5 hours of sleep per night for less than a week. Their blood tests started to look pre-diabetic. Their cells were less responsive to insulin, and their blood sugar levels were elevated after meals, as if they were on their way to type 2 diabetes. That happened in literally a matter of days. The good news is it was reversible with good sleep, but consider the millions of people who sleep poorly for months or years. They are essentially accelerating toward metabolic disorders. Chronic short sleep has been strongly linked to a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Also, if someone is trying to lose weight through dieting, sleep can make a big difference in what kind of weight they lose. In one study, people on a calorie-restricted diet were either allowed to sleep normally or were sleep-restricted. Both lost a similar amount of weight in terms of the scale, but the ones who were sleep-deprived lost much more lean muscle and much less fat, whereas the well-rested dieters lost mostly fat. In other words, sleep deprivation shifted the body to burn the wrong fuel, muscle, and hold on to fat, which is not what anyone wants. Your body perceives a lack of sleep as a stress signal and tries to conserve energy, fat, and break down other tissues instead. All told, insufficient sleep is a strong risk factor for obesity. Children and adults who routinely get less sleep are more likely to gain weight. It's a sometimes overlooked factor. People focus on diet and exercise, but don't realize that without fixing sleep, they might be fighting an uphill battle. Sleep helps regulate the hormones that control appetite, gives you the energy and willpower to be active and choose healthy foods, and keeps your metabolism running optimally. It's like the third pillar of weight management alongside diet and exercise. Reproductive health. Sleep can even influence our reproductive hormones. In men, as Walker notes, just 1 week of 5 hours per night sleep caused a drop in testosterone so large it effectively aged the men by 10-15 years in terms of hormonal virility. Lower testosterone can mean reduced muscle mass, lower libido, and other health issues. In women too, poor sleep can disrupt menstrual cycles and fertility. Studies have found links between shift work with erratic sleep and menstrual irregularities or fertility problems. During pregnancy, adequate sleep is important as well, since severe sleep deprivation might elevate risks of complications. Plus, once the baby arrives, the parents are in for unavoidable sleep loss, so it's best to bank good sleep during pregnancy if possible. Sleep affects sperm count and motility as well. Men who sleep poorly often have lower sperm counts and more abnormal sperm. Some of this might tie back to hormone disruptions, not just testosterone, but things like follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone that orchestrate reproductive function, which are released partly in a circadian rhythm. There's also an association between short sleep and lower sex drive and satisfaction in both men and women. So a good night's sleep might actually improve your romantic life by balancing those hormones and mood. The repair crew, cellular maintenance. Our body has many repair processes that go into high gear during sleep. For example, growth hormone, vital for muscle repair, tissue growth, and regeneration, is primarily released during deep NREM sleep. That's why children who are growing need lots of sleep, and why athletes who want to build or repair muscle need to prioritize sleep as well. It's literally anabolic, promoting growth and healing. At night, proteins are rebuilt, cells recycle waste, and even our DNA gets a check. There's evidence that the body conducts more DNA repair during sleep, fixing the day's damage from things like UV light or oxidative stress. If those repairs don't happen, cells can accumulate mutations that might lead to diseases like cancer. Inflammation is another thing that sleep helps control. Lack of sleep leads to higher levels of inflammatory markers in the blood, like C-reactive protein. Chronic inflammation is a known risk factor for many diseases, from heart disease to depression to Alzheimer's. Adequate sleep keeps inflammation in check, likely by moderating the immune system's activity, longevity, and all-cause mortality. Because sleep influences so many systems, it's no surprise that not sleeping enough is linked to dying sooner from any cause. Large epidemiological studies tracking thousands of people for years find a clear pattern. Those who consistently get around 7-8 hours of sleep have the best longevity, whereas those who sleep significantly less or significantly more, which often signals illness, die earlier at higher rates. The causes vary: more heart attacks, more strokes, more accidents, more cancer, but sleep is a common denominator. Walker stresses, the shorter your sleep, the shorter your life. It might sound grim, but it's a powerful call to take sleep seriously as a factor for living a long, healthy life. It's not just about avoiding disease, it's about functioning optimally in the years you have. Quality of life, daily energy, lack of pain, good mood, is much higher in those who sleep well regularly. Pain and injury. One more aspect: pain tolerance and injury risk. People who are sleep deprived are more sensitive to pain. Lack of sleep can amplify pain signals, making chronic pain conditions worse and pain medications less effective. This can become a vicious cycle because pain can also disrupt sleep. Breaking that cycle often involves aggressively treating insomnia and improving sleep, which can then lower pain levels. Athletes or individuals who exercise should know that injuries like sprains or muscle tears are more likely to happen when you're fatigued from poor sleep, since reaction times are slower and muscles don't recover as well. And if an injury does occur, your recovery will be slower if your sleep is insufficient because the healing processes are curtailed. Diabetes and metabolic syndrome. We touched on this with insulin sensitivity dropping after poor sleep. Over the long term, short sleep duration is strongly correlated with developing type 2 diabetes. Even for those without diabetes, sleep affects day-to-day blood sugar control. After a bad night, your blood sugar might spike higher after meals than it normally would. If you wear a glucose monitor, you might see that difference. Sleep helps keep our metabolism tuned so we handle food efficiently. In summary, sleep is the Swiss Army knife of health. It stitches up tears in our muscles. It refuels our immune weapons. It balances our hormones. It clears out toxins. It regulates appetite. It calms the cardiovascular system. The list goes on. When we deprive ourselves of sleep, it's like removing that Swiss Army knife from our toolkit. Suddenly we're vulnerable on many fronts. The human body evolved to expect a plentiful dose of sleep each night as the time to do all its critical maintenance. Without that, it's as though you skipped taking your car to the shop for an annual service year after year. Eventually, something breaks. Only in the body, many things can break or falter: heart, metabolism, brain, etc. The encouraging angle is that restoring healthy sleep can rapidly start to reverse many of these issues. For instance, improving sleep can lower blood pressure, improve blood sugar, boost immunity. Ever noticed how, when you finally catch up on sleep, you feel so much better overall? So even if one has had poor sleep habits, it's never too late to benefit from change. Sleep is free medicine. While you sleep, your body releases literally a pharmacy of beneficial chemicals like a nightly elixir that heals and protects. In the quest to be healthy, people often chase supplements, diets, workout plans. Those can help, but if sleep is neglected, it's like trying to fill a bucket that has a big hole in the bottom. By prioritizing sleep, you plug that hole, and suddenly all your other healthy efforts hold and pay off much more. In essence, sleep is the foundation upon which physical health stands. It's an unsung hero in our daily life, silent, seemingly unproductive, yet absolutely vital. When you give your body the sleep it needs, your body returns the favor by giving you robust health and vitality. The mysterious world of dreams, how REM sleep nurtures the mind. One of the most captivating aspects of sleep is that it brings us into the realm of dreams. Every night, for about 20 to 25% of our sleep time, we enter REM sleep, and our brains concoct vivid, sometimes bizarre stories. Dreams have fascinated humans for millennia, interpreted as omens, inspiration, or nonsense. Matthew Walker's exploration in Why We Sleep sheds light on dreams from a scientific viewpoint. What is happening in the brain when we dream, and why might it be useful? Routinely psychotic, Walker humorously describes dreaming as a state in which we all become routinely psychotic. Consider the definition of psychosis: hallucinations, seeing, hearing things that aren't there; delusions, believing things that are false; disorientation in time, place, emotional extremes, and memory gaps. When we dream, all of those things happen. We see and hear imaginary people and events, hallucination. We accept crazy scenarios without questioning. Delusion, for example, you might dream you can fly and think it's perfectly normal. We often don't know it's a dream, so we're confused about reality, disorientation. We feel strong emotions, nightmares, euphoric dreams, etc. And then we often wake up and forget most of it, amnesia. It's striking. For a couple hours each night, our brain essentially goes on a wild, imaginative ride that we partially or wholly forget by morning. From the outside, you'd never guess such mental adventures were happening. The sleeper looks calm, aside from the telltale eye movements and maybe some twitches or mumbling. So why would evolution produce a state that, on the surface, seems a bit mad? It turns out, behind the hallucinatory content of dreams, REM sleep, the dream state, serves critical functions for our emotional and creative brains. Overnight therapy healing emotional wounds. One of the most important roles of REM sleep and dreaming is emotional processing. During REM sleep, our brain reactivates recent emotional experiences and memories, but here's the key. It does so in a neurochemical bath that is very different from wakefulness. Specifically, during REM, levels of noradrenaline, norepinephrine, a stress-related neurotransmitter, are effectively zero. This is unique because when we're awake, noradrenaline circulates normally and especially spikes during stress or emotional arousal. It's akin to brain adrenaline. By turning off noradrenaline in REM, the brain can reprocess emotional memories without the sting of anxiety or stress. Imagine you had an upsetting experience, say, an argument with a friend or a frightening near miss in traffic. That night, when you enter REM, your brain may replay the memory of that event, often not literally, but the themes or feelings may be woven into a dream scenario. However, with stress chemistry muted, your brain can sort of take the edge off the emotion. It's as if REM is a safe space to re-experience the feelings in a way that might help you feel better about them by morning. Have you ever gone to bed with a heartache or anger, and while it's not completely gone in the morning, it feels less intense? That's likely REM sleep doing its therapeutic work. Walker likens it to a form of therapy without a therapist each night. We have a chance to mend emotional wounds, or at least reduce them to scars that we can handle. This understanding has implications for conditions like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD might be seen as a situation where traumatic memories are not getting processed and detuned properly, perhaps because in PTSD patients, noradrenaline remains too high at night or their REM is disrupted by nightmares. Some treatments for PTSD now involve prazosin, a drug that lowers noradrenaline, in hopes of restoring normal REM processing to help patients emotionally work through trauma in their sleep. It's a promising area showing how knowledge of REM's function could translate to therapies. Even for those without PTSD, if you don't get enough REM sleep, you might notice feeling more emotionally brittle. There's a phenomenon called REM rebound irritability. Say you had a few nights where something like alcohol or stress suppressed your REM sleep. You might find yourself on edge or emotionally volatile. Once you get good REM sleep again, you often feel more emotionally balanced. Dreaming as a creativity incubator. Beyond emotions, dreams seem to fuel our creativity and problem solving. In REM, the brain is in a highly associative state. Neural activity in REM sleep shows that the visual and emotional areas are lit up, while the prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational part, is less active. This is why dreams feel so uninhibited and often visually rich or emotionally charged. The normal logical brakes are off, allowing new combinations of thoughts to form. It's a bit like brainstorming freely without criticizing any idea. The brain can make wild connections in dreams that it might never entertain while awake. This can lead to novel ideas or insights. Walker shares examples of famous dream-inspired ideas. The chemist Friedrich Kekule dreamed of a snake biting its tail, which inspired the ring structure of the benzene molecule. That dream solved a chemistry puzzle. Paul McCartney is said to have dreamed the tune of the song Yesterday. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein story was inspired by a vivid nightmare. These are spectacular cases, but even for us regular people, a solution to a problem we've been mulling over can emerge after a night of dreaming, or the next morning we see it differently. If you've ever woken up from a dream and thought, "That was bizarre but interesting, and actually it gives me an idea," then you've tasted the creative boost of dreams. REM sleep seems to be the brain's way of thinking outside the box every night. It's as if all the memories of recent days and older times are thrown into a blender with imagination and emotion, and out comes this dream narrative, often weaving together things that you wouldn't connect while awake. Sometimes nothing useful comes of it, but occasionally that mix yields a fresh perspective or a new artistic concept. One study illustrated this. People were given very basic word problems that actually benefited from making distant connections. For example, find a word that relates to 3 seemingly unrelated words, which requires creative association. Those tested in the morning after a full night's sleep, especially if they had robust REM, performed better and had more aha moments than those who tried in the evening without sleeping. Sleep had been doing the associative work unconsciously. Memory integration and defragmentation. Dreaming also contributes to a process of integrating memories in a network. Think of each day's experiences as isolated files. NREM sleep stores them carefully, and then REM sleep opens those files and looks for connections to other files in your brain's library. In doing so, REM may tag certain memories as having common themes or useful intersections. This could be why sometimes you dream of a mishmash, your childhood home mixed with your current co-workers in a scenario from a movie you watched. Your brain might be finding some emotional or thematic link between them, or just exploring possible links. It seems messy, but this might help us develop a more interconnected and flexible understanding of the world. After all, creativity in waking life is often just connecting things that were not obviously connected before. Lucid dreaming and control. Walker also touches on the phenomenon of lucid dreaming, where you become aware that you're dreaming while still in the dream. In lucid dreams, some people can even influence the dream's content like choosing to fly or solving a problem deliberately. This is a minority experience, though there are techniques to train lucid dreaming, but it shows that our cognitive capabilities can sometimes wake up within a dream. Research on lucid dreamers has demonstrated that certain brain regions, like the prefrontal cortex, can become more active during a lucid dream, which is why the person gains insight into the fact that it's a dream. While lucid dreaming is fascinating and can even be fun or potentially therapeutic, imagine being able to confront your nightmares by realizing they're just dreams and then changing them. It's not necessarily something everyone needs to do to get benefits of REM. Even non-lucid dreams are doing the emotional and creative work, whether or not you remember or can control them. Nightmares and emotional learning. Not all dreams are pleasant. Nightmares, intensely negative dreams that wake you up, are common, especially after stress or trauma. A nightmare is like REM's attempt at emotional processing, but it gets overloaded with emotion, and you wake up, often still in a fear state. Occasional nightmares can be a release valve for stress, but frequent ones, like in PTSD, are maladaptive. Therapies exist, such as imagery rehearsal therapy, where patients consciously reimagine and alter their nightmares while awake, hoping that practice carries into sleep and defangs the nightmare. This again underscores that the content of dreams can reflect our waking concerns, and sometimes by addressing those, we can change our dream life and vice versa. Dreams for social skills. There's a hypothesis that dreams, especially REM dreams, help with social and emotional understanding. For instance, many dreams involve interactions with others, sometimes real people, sometimes strangers or fantastical beings. It's been observed that emotional themes, particularly negative ones, are overrepresented in dreams. We dream more about anxiety, fear, aggression, etc., than happy, easygoing situations. That could be because our brain is practicing handling those emotions or scenarios. Some scientists think dreams are like a simulation training, exposing us to problems and challenges in a virtual world, so we're better prepared for the real world. It's hard to prove, but it's an intriguing idea. Our ancestors who dreamed about threats, like predators or conflicts, might have been a bit more ready for those threats in daytime. Dream content is also often bizarre. Why the weirdness? Possibly to help us think abstractly. Dreams rarely just replay our day plainly. They often take elements of our life and distort them. This distortion could actually help generalize lessons from experiences. Say you had a fight with a friend about feeling disrespected. You might dream that night of a completely different scenario where perhaps an authority figure mistreats you and you react. The character's changed, but the core emotion, I feel disrespected and hurt, plays out. The dream might be helping your brain understand that feeling and how to cope, without the exact, real people present. The weird story is just a cloak for the underlying concern. REM for brain development. We should also mention, why do babies have so much REM, up to 50% of their sleep? It hints that REM is also involved in brain development and learning when we're young. It may be helping to establish neural connections in a brain that is rapidly growing. As we get older, we still keep REM, but at a lower fraction, tilde 20-25%. Still significant, which means it's important even in adulthood, just perhaps more for refinement than initial development. REM and social evolution. Walker speculates that humans having more REM and more complex dreams might have given us an evolutionary edge in terms of social complexity, understanding others' emotions, fostering empathy. Some research suggests that during REM, the brain works on reading facial expressions and such. It's a bit theoretical, but consider that a dream allows you to experience someone else's perspective in a way. Sometimes you even dream you are someone else. This could enhance empathy, or at least social cognition. Whether or not you remember your dreams, they may still influence your mood and creativity upon waking. Some people hardly recall dreams, but their brains still had them. Interestingly, recalling dreams often just means you woke up during or right after REM. If you sleep through the night soundly, you might have fewer recallable dreams, yet you got their benefits. There's no known hazard in not recalling dreams, except you miss out on the entertainment or self-reflection they can provide consciously. But those who enjoy dreams and remember them often find personal meaning or even creative inspiration in them. The joy and occasional terror of dreams. Dreams can be emotionally powerful. A wonderful dream can leave you with a warm glow all day. A lingering nightmare can leave an emotional residue too. People sometimes dream of departed loved ones and take comfort, or dream of scenarios that give them an idea for a project. Recognizing that dreams are part of how our mind deals with feelings and ideas can allow us to have a healthier relationship with them. Instead of dismissing a dream as just a dream, we might see it as an insight into something we're grappling with. Walker recounts how dreams most often revolve around what is emotionally salient to us, not necessarily bizarre randomness. The emotional core of a dream is usually connected to our waking life. In summary, REM sleep and dreaming is like an overnight workshop for our psyche. In that workshop, the lights are dimmed, conscious rational control down, the stage is set, memories from our life act as characters and props. There's a director, our brainstem and limbic system, who's not afraid of surreal art. The critics are absent. We don't judge the absurdity in dreams. We roll with it. And the goal is twofold: work through feelings and spark new ideas. By the time we leave this nightly theatre, ideally, we've softened the sharp edges of yesterday's sorrows and perhaps gained some creative ideas for tomorrow's challenges. Dreaming is at once mysterious and incredibly functional. It shows that even when our consciousness rests, the brain is tirelessly performing emotional first aid and creativity training. So, next time you wake from a crazy dream, remember, it might have been exactly what you needed. Even if it made no sense on the surface, beneath the theatre of the absurd, your mind was doing some valuable work calming your emotional seas and forging new paths through the forest of your memories. How amazing is it that every night, without effort, we engage in this profound act of healing and imagination? It's yet another reason to cherish our sleep, bizarre dreams and all. Modern sleep disruption. Why we're losing sleep today. Despite knowing how essential sleep is, we live in a time where getting enough quality sleep has become increasingly difficult. Walker identifies several formidable obstacles to good sleep that are peculiar to modern society. From our gadgets and work schedules to lifestyle habits, these factors collude to rob us of rest. Let's look at why so many of us struggle to sleep well in the 21st century. The always-on culture and sleep procrastination. First, there's the pervasive mindset that staying busy and productive is a badge of honor, while sleep is for the lazy. Many people voluntarily sacrifice sleep to get more work done or to have more leisure time. With endless entertainment and connectivity at our fingertips, it's easy to push bedtime later and later. We often succumb to what's called revenge bedtime procrastination. After a long day of work or obligations, people stay up late to reclaim personal time, watching shows, scrolling social media, etc., even though it cuts into sleep. Ironically, the more we cheat sleep, the less enjoyment and efficiency we get from those extra waking hours because we're tired and less present. But psychologically, it's a hard trap to escape, especially since our modern world offers 24/7 distractions and pressures. Artificial light turning night into day. Perhaps the biggest environmental change disrupting sleep is electric light, especially the modern prevalence of LED and screen light. Our ancestors had only the sun, and at night, dim firelight or lanterns. Today, once the sun goes down, our homes are still brightly lit, and we're often staring into screens, phones, tablets, computers, TVs, that emit strong blue light wavelengths. Blue light is particularly potent in sending a signal to our brain's circadian clock that it's daytime, stay awake. This happens through cells in our eyes that respond to blue light and suppress melatonin production. Remember, melatonin is the darkness hormone that signals it's time for sleep. So, by blasting ourselves with artificial light at night, we are essentially tricking our brain to think night hasn't fully arrived, delaying the natural sleep signal. Reading on a tablet at 11 p.m. can push your melatonin rise by hours compared to reading a printed book under a soft lamp. Even standard room lighting can be enough to suppress melatonin somewhat. Think of a typical person's evening: bright overhead LED lights on, TV on, checking the phone with that bright white screen. It's a melatonin-suppressing extravaganza. This leads to difficulty falling asleep, and it shifts our circadian rhythm later than it would be otherwise. Many of us are night owls, not purely by choice or genetics, but because we've artificially shoved our body clock later with nightly light exposure. On top of that, while we're engaging with screens, we're also mentally stimulating ourselves, reading news, playing games, etc., which can make the brain too aroused to settle into sleep. What can we do? Walker suggests a few strategies to counteract light pollution in our nights. In the hour or two before bed, aim for low lighting, dim lamps, warm color lights, more yellow-red, less blue-white, and minimize screen usage or use blue light filters. Many devices have a night mode that tints the screen warmer. Some people even wear blue light blocking glasses in the evenings to reduce that frequency of light reaching the eyes. Additionally, make sure your sleeping environment is dark. Even a little light leaking in, street lights, hallway lights, can subtly perturb sleep. Blackout curtains, covering up LED indicator lights in the bedroom, and keeping devices away from the bedside can help. Darkness should be the default for sleep. Sadly, many bedrooms are not dark enough, either because of outside light or even people leaving TVs on as they try to sleep, which is not advisable. Technology and information overload. Beyond light, our devices provide endless engagement. Social media, emails, or just general web browsing can fill our minds with thoughts and emotions late into the night. A stressful work email read at 10 p.m. can churn in your head and cause insomnia. Or just the general overstimulation of rapid-fire content, the endless feed scroll, can make it hard to mentally wind down. The brain needs a buffer zone to shift from the fast-paced wake mode to the slower rhythms of sleep. If we are answering texts or watching action movies until the minute we try to sleep, we haven't allowed any downshift. Walker recommends establishing a wind-down routine. Perhaps the last 30-60 minutes before bed should be calm, screen-free time. Do relaxing things, light reading on paper, listening to quiet music, gentle stretching, a warm bath, or some meditation. This sends a clear signal to your body and mind that the day is over and sleep is next. Caffeine. The double-edged sword. We touched on caffeine earlier in how it blocks sleep pressure. Modern society is awash in caffeine. Beyond coffee and tea, there are energy drinks, sodas, and caffeine hidden in foods or medications. Caffeine can linger in your system well into the night. A cup of coffee at dinner may leave a quarter of its caffeine still active in your brain at bedtime, keeping those adenosine receptors blocked and preventing you from feeling sleepy or staying in deep sleep. There's also the phenomenon of people who say, "Caffeine doesn't affect me, I can drink espresso and fall asleep." While they might indeed fall asleep, studies have shown that the quality of their sleep is lower, more wake-ups, less deep sleep, even if they don't consciously notice it. It's like getting cheated out of some of the benefits of sleep. So caffeine late in the day is a major sleep disruptor for almost everyone. Walker's advice: ideally avoid caffeine in the late afternoon and evening entirely. If you're sensitive, even 2 p.m. coffee could be a problem. And remember caffeine's long half-life. If you consume a lot, say 200 milligrams at 4 p.m., by midnight you might still have 100 milligrams in you, which is not trivial. Another trap is using caffeine to mask chronic sleep deprivation, then sleeping poorly because of the caffeine and needing more caffeine the next day. Breaking that cycle might mean enduring a dip in energy for a short while as you let your body recalibrate to natural energy levels and using that period to normalize your sleep pattern. Alcohol. The false friend of sleep. Many people use alcohol in the evening to unwind or as a nightcap to help fall asleep. Walker strongly warns that alcohol is not your friend when it comes to sleep. Alcohol is a sedative. It can make you feel relaxed and might help you lose consciousness faster, but sedation is not natural sleep. Alcohol essentially fragments your sleep. You'll have more brief awakenings. Often you don't remember them, but they break the continuity of sleep. And it significantly suppresses REM sleep, especially in the early part of the night. People who drink a lot before bed often miss out on a big chunk of REM in the first few sleep cycles. This can lead to an imbalance where REM tries to rebound later, possibly causing vivid dreams or nightmares once the alcohol wears off. And overall, the sleep isn't as restorative. That's why after a night of heavy drinking, even if you were out for 8 hours, you can still feel tired or mentally off. Your sleep architecture was a mess. Additionally, alcohol is a diuretic. It can make you wake to use the bathroom. It also can worsen snoring and sleep apnea by over-relaxing throat muscles. For all these reasons, Walker's recommendation is to avoid alcohol in the hours close to bedtime. If you do enjoy a drink in the evening, try to have it at least a few hours before you plan to sleep to let your body metabolize much of it. But nightly drinking as a sleep aid is a slippery slope. Tolerance builds and sleep quality degrades further, which is actually a contributing factor to the anxiety and irritability some experience, leading them to drink more, a vicious circle. Temperature. The overlooked factor. Human sleep is very sensitive to temperature. To initiate sleep, your body needs to drop its core temperature by about 2 degrees Celsius, 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why a cooler environment tends to foster sleep. However, modern homes often keep temperatures very constant, and sometimes too warm at night for optimal sleep. The ideal ambient temperature for sleep is around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius, for most people, give or take a couple degrees. Under too many blankets or in a hot room, you may have trouble falling asleep or staying in deep sleep even if you don't fully wake up. Ever noticed you sleep worse on a hot summer night without AC? That's the effect of temperature. We typically see body temperature start to fall in the evening naturally as melatonin rises. You can help this process. Taking a warm bath an hour before bed might sound counterintuitive, but it actually helps because when you step out of the bath, your dilated blood vessels release heat and your core cools down faster. You feel toasty at first, then your body rapidly sheds the extra heat. That can trigger sleepiness. Keeping your bedroom cool, using breathable bedding, and maybe sticking a foot out from under the covers, feet are great radiators of heat, can also help regulate temp. Also, avoid heavy exercise too late in the evening. Exercise raises core body temperature significantly, and it can take hours to fully drop. That's one reason vigorous workouts should be ideally done at least 2-3 hours before bed. If you must exercise late, a cool shower afterward and giving yourself some time to cool off can mitigate it. Noise and interruptions. Our modern environment is also noisy. Even if you don't live in a city, phones beep, appliances hum, cars go by. Noise can fragment sleep even if you don't fully wake. Light sleepers in noisy environments might benefit from earplugs or white noise machines to mask sudden sounds with a gentle constant whoosh, Consistent noise, like a fan, is often less disturbing than intermittent barking dog or honking horns. Ensuring your sleep environment is as quiet as possible or filled with soothing sound is another way to combat modern disturbances. Stress and mental overload. Modern life can be mentally exhausting, but ironically that doesn't guarantee sleep. In fact, mental stress often keeps people awake. Anxiety or racing thoughts at bedtime are common. People lie in bed worrying about work or life problems, and the brain, instead of winding down, winds up. This is one of the greatest challenges: how to turn off the mental chatter. Good sleep hygiene practices can help, like having a to-do list written down so you're not mentally listing tasks in bed, or doing a brief journal entry to offload worries before lying down. Relaxation techniques like deep breathing exercises or progressive muscle relaxation or mindfulness meditation can genuinely help quiet the mind. For example, some find the 4-7-8 breathing method helpful. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8, repeat, to induce calm. Others might visualize a tranquil scene or listen to a guided relaxation audio. The key is to break the cycle of rumination. Clocks in the bedroom can exacerbate anxiety. Watching the clock, it's 2 a.m. and I'm still awake, now I'll only get 5 hours, is counterproductive. Walker suggests removing the visible clock if you tend to obsess over time, because it just fuels stress, which further impedes sleep. Insomnia. The persistent sleeplessness, chronic insomnia, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep consistently, is a disorder that affects a large portion of the population, especially in high-stress modern societies. It can start from any of the factors above: stress, irregular schedule, etc., but then often becomes a cycle. You have a few bad nights for whatever reason, then you start worrying about sleep itself, which creates performance anxiety at bedtime. What if I can't sleep again tonight? That anxiety itself keeps you awake. Over time, people with insomnia can develop bad associations with their bed. They start to see it as a place of frustration, not rest. Insomnia is one of the most common sleep issues today, and sadly, many suffering from it feel alone, or that it's just how I am. But insomnia is often treatable. We'll cover solutions in the next section. Social and work schedules. We have structured our world in a way that often clashes with our biology. Early work or school start times mean many people cut sleep on weekdays and try to catch up on weekends, which can disrupt the consistency the body actually craves. Shift workers like nurses, firefighters, factory or transport workers on overnight shifts face even more severe disruption, trying to sleep in the day when their body insists it should be awake. Shift work is associated with higher rates of various health problems, as mentioned, even labeled as a probable carcinogen. While not everyone has a choice about shift work, it's important to mitigate it, with bright light exposure when you need to be awake at night, and extreme darkness, and maybe melatonin when you need to sleep in the day, etc., and to keep some pattern even on off days, to not constantly flip schedules. For the typical 9-to-5 worker, the problems are often the overextension of the day, bringing work home on the laptop, answering late emails, and commute times. Some people wake at 5 to drive an hour to work, cutting their sleep opportunity. Additionally, globalization and technology now mean people might attend calls or work with colleagues in different time zones, extending work hours. There's also the phenomenon of on-call or emergency workers whose sleep can be unpredictably cut by a call at 2 a.m. These lifestyles are taxing and often underappreciated for their toll on sleep and thus performance. Substances and medications. Aside from caffeine and alcohol, many common medications can interfere with sleep, either causing insomnia or causing grogginess. Beta blocker medications for blood pressure, for instance, can lower melatonin. Some antidepressants suppress REM heavily. Steroids and decongestants can make one jittery. Awareness of these side effects can help one adjust timing. Maybe take that med in morning or discuss alternatives with a doctor if it's wrecking sleep. Additionally, smoking, nicotine, is a stimulant. Smokers often have more fragmented sleep and wake earlier due to withdrawal. Quitting smoking not only helps lungs, it often improves sleep too. In summary, our modern world often conspires against sleep in multiple ways. Think of the ideal conditions for human sleep from an evolutionary perspective. Get up with sunlight, physically active in daylight, no artificial lights at night beyond maybe fire, relatively cooler and darker at night, limited stimulants or substances, minimal stress about abstract things. Now compared to today, we often get insufficient natural light in the day. Office workers in dim indoor settings can mess up circadian strength. Then too much artificial light at night, we're more sedentary, so maybe not physically tired but mentally wired. We dose with caffeine to compensate. We then drown stress in wine or late-night TV. We keep bedrooms warm and bright, and we start the whole cycle too early the next day. It's almost upside down. However, knowledge is power. Recognizing these factors means we can try to take back some control, perhaps by setting a digital curfew at night, revamping our bedroom environment, treating sleep as a non-negotiable priority rather than the thing we give up when busy, and educating others, like employers or schools, on the importance of reasonable schedules and sleep-friendly policies. Walker's book isn't about blaming people for sleeping poorly. It's about pointing out these hidden culprits so we can change our behavior and our culture to better protect our sleep. Rethinking sleep aids, the problem with pills and better solutions. When faced with chronic sleep problems, many people and doctors turn to sleeping pills or other quick fixes. Ambien, benzodiazepines, antihistamines, herbal supplements. There's a whole arsenal out there marketed to help you sleep. Matthew Walker urges caution here. He argues that while sleeping pills might knock you out, they do not produce natural sleep and come with serious downsides. The good news is there are effective, healthier approaches to improving sleep, notably cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, and basic sleep hygiene practices. Let's unpack why pills are problematic and what alternatives we have. Sleeping pills. Sedation is not sleep. Prescription sleeping medications like Zolpidem, Ambien, Ezopiclone, Lunesta, or older benzodiazepines like diazepam, Valium, work by targeting the brain's receptors for GABA, a neurotransmitter that inhibits brain activity. Essentially, these drugs sedate the brain. They can make you unconscious, but the brainwave patterns under these drugs are not the same as natural sleep. Certain stages, especially the deeper ones, can be reduced or altered. The result is that drug-induced sleep doesn't give you the full restorative benefits. People often report that on sleeping pills, they still feel groggy or not truly refreshed, even if they technically were asleep for 8 hours. Furthermore, sleeping pills tend to fragment sleep similarly to alcohol micro-awakenings that you may not recall. They also suppress REM to varying degrees, which might lead to a REM rebound in the form of vivid dreams or nightmares when you stop the drug. Thus, long-term use might deprive you of the full extent of memory consolidation or emotional processing that REM and deep NREM provide. Side effects and risks. Sleeping pills carry a host of potential side effects. Next-day drowsiness or a hungover feeling is common, which can impair driving or work. They can also cause issues like memory lapses, not recalling things you did or said before bed. And in some rare cases, bizarre behaviors, sleepwalking, sleep eating, even sleep driving, where the person is not fully aware, similar to being in a twilight sedated state. These are obviously dangerous. The most alarming data Walker discusses is that regular use of prescription sleep medication has been associated with a significantly higher risk of mortality and even cancer in some epidemiological studies,
One large study found those who took such meds regularly were several times more likely to die over a given period than non-users, even accounting for health differences. It's hard to prove causation. Perhaps people on pills had worse health to start, but the association is concerning. The cancer link is not fully understood, but one hypothesis is that poor sleep, which might still occur on pills, plus the drugs themselves, could have negative effects on the immune system's surveillance of cancer cells. Dependence and tolerance. Another problem? Sleeping pills can be habit-forming. Over time, you might need higher doses to get the same effect as your body adapts. Stopping them suddenly can lead to rebound insomnia, even worse sleep than before, as your body is somewhat addicted to the drug's presence. This can trap people on the medication long term. Even over-the-counter sleep aids, usually antihistamines like diphenhydramine found in PM, pain relievers, or certain sleep gels, cause tolerance. What knocked you out for 8 hours a month ago might only give 4-5 hours now. And they have anticholinergic side effects, morning grogginess, cognitive dulling, and in older adults, risk of confusion or urinary retention. Melatonin supplements. A quick note on melatonin, since many consider it a gentler sleep aid. Melatonin is not a sedative. As mentioned, it's a timing hormone. Melatonin supplements can be helpful for shifting circadian rhythm, like for jet lag or shifting a night owl to earlier sleep. But for general insomnia, melatonin's effect is mild. It might help you feel ready for bed, but it won't necessarily keep you asleep or make your sleep deeper. Moreover, melatonin is unregulated. In many places, some supplements have wildly inaccurate doses or impurities. Still, as far as safety, short-term melatonin use is generally safe and not habit-forming. Just manage expectations. It's more like a gentle nudge than a knockout pill. So if not pills, then what? Walker strongly advocates for cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, as the first-line treatment for chronic insomnia. CBTI is a structured program, usually over 4-8 weeks, guided by a trained therapist or sometimes via digital programs that helps people change their thoughts and behaviors around sleep. Key components of CBTI include sleep restriction and consolidation. It sounds counterintuitive, but if someone is spending 8 hours in bed but only sleeping 5 fitful hours of that, a therapist might temporarily restrict their time in bed to maybe 5.5 hours, closer to actual sleep time. This builds stronger sleep pressure because you're not lying awake in bed for long. You're basically only in bed when your body is desperate to sleep. Once the person starts sleeping solidly those 5.5 hours, you gradually expand time in bed by 15, 30 minutes and so on, retraining the body to associate bed with only sleep and to deepen sleep. Over weeks, the person can often get back to 7-8 hours of solid sleep. Stimulus control. This involves breaking the negative associations with the bed. For example, rules like use the bed only for sleep and sex, not for work, not for watching TV, not for worrying. If you can't fall asleep within approximately 20 minutes, get up and go to another room and do something quiet and relaxing in dim light until you feel sleepy, then return to bed. This prevents the bed from becoming a site of frustration. Over time, you want your brain to think bed sleep almost immediately. Cognitive restructuring. People with insomnia often have anxious thoughts around sleep. I'll never sleep. I'll be a wreck tomorrow. What if I die younger because of this? I must get 8 hours or I'll fail, etc. These thoughts increase anxiety and make sleep even harder. CBTI helps patients challenge and reframe these thoughts. For instance, yes, tomorrow might be tough if I don't sleep much, but I've handled that kind of day before. Or even if I'm not sleeping, resting quietly is still better than nothing. Taking the catastrophic thinking down a notch can reduce performance anxiety about sleeping. Relaxation techniques. Therapists may teach relaxation exercises tailored to the person, be it breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, imagery, or even biofeedback. Doing a consistent relaxing routine at bedtime can signal the body it's okay to let go. Some CBTI protocols teach mindfulness meditation, which can help someone learn to observe their racing thoughts without getting caught up in them, thereby allowing sleep to come. Sleep hygiene education. While many of us know some general tips, like those 12 tips mentioned in the book's appendix, a therapist will reinforce the importance of behaviors like maintaining a consistent wake-up time. Yes, even on weekends that one is crucial, albeit unpopular, because sleeping in a lot can throw off your rhythm. Avoiding heavy meals or vigorous exercise late, cutting caffeine after lunch, limiting alcohol, making the bedroom environment dark, quiet, and cool. They'll help troubleshoot what factors in a person's life might be harming sleep and come up with a plan to adjust them. CBTY has been shown in studies to be as effective as sleeping pills in the short term and more effective in the long term because it teaches you skills for life, whereas pills stop working once you stop taking them. It has no side effects except the effort and maybe a little short-term sleepiness during the initial sleep restriction phase. Importantly, its benefits persist. Many people conquer insomnia or drastically reduce it through CBTI and maintain good sleep without ongoing therapy. The challenge is access. Not everyone has a CBTI-trained therapist nearby. But with the importance of sleep being recognized, more healthcare systems are recommending CBTI and more apps and online programs are becoming available to guide people through it. Some names include Sleepio, CBTI Coach, an app by VA for veterans but available to all, etc. For those with milder sleep issues, sometimes just following good sleep hygiene principles can make a difference. Walker provides 12 tips summarized from the National Institutes of Health guidelines, such as 1. Stick to a sleep schedule, same wake time and bedtime every day because regularity anchors your circadian rhythm. 2. Exercise regularly, morning or afternoon is best, which can deepen sleep but not too late in the evening. 3. Avoid caffeine and nicotine, especially later in the day as we discussed. 4. Avoid large meals and lots of fluids late at night to prevent indigestion and middle-of-night bathroom trips. 5. If possible, avoid medicines that disturb sleep. Consult with doctor for alternatives if a med is making sleep hard. 6. Don't take naps after 3 p.m. Napping too late can steal the sleep pressure needed at night, especially for insomniacs. Those short power naps early afternoon can be okay for those who sleep fine at night. 7. Relax before bed, have a wind-down ritual. 8. Take a hot bath before bed for the cooling effect after. 9. Make the bedroom dark, cool, and gadget-free. That means no TV, no visible clocks. Keep smartphones out or on Do Not Disturb, etc. The bed environment should be a sanctuary for sleep. 10. Get sunlight exposure, especially in the morning and throughout the day, to reinforce your internal clock sense of day. This tip is about daytime habits affecting night. Bright light in the morning can help you fall asleep earlier at night by shifting your circadian phase appropriately. 11. Don't lie in bed awake. As we noted, get up and do something relaxing if you can't sleep, to break negative associations. 12. If you have continued trouble, don't hesitate to seek help. Many treat sleep as low priority. But if you had a persistent fever, you'd see a doctor. Persistent insomnia deserves attention too. Implementing even a few of these can yield noticeable improvements. And often it's not one thing but a combination that does the trick. For example, set a consistent wake time, cut out late coffee, and start a relaxing pre-bed routine together. These might significantly improve your sleep. Natural aids and alternative remedies. Many wonder about chamomile tea, lavender, magnesium supplements, etc. These tend to be mild if effective. A warm cup of herbal tea, non-caffeinated, can be relaxing as a ritual. The scent of lavender has small anxiety-reducing effects for some. Magnesium can help if someone is deficient. It plays a role in muscle relaxation. But it's not a sedative per se. Such things usually don't hurt, and if they become part of a calming routine, they might indirectly help through relaxation. Just be wary of anything that is unregulated and overpromises. Lots of supplements claim miraculous sleep benefits without evidence. Dealing with the root cause. In some cases, addressing an underlying issue can fix sleep. For example, if chronic pain is waking someone, better pain management will help sleep. If anxiety or depression are causing insomnia, treating those conditions, often sleep will improve as they improve, or vice versa, since they influence each other. If someone has sleep apnea, pauses in breathing causing arousals, then CPAP therapy or other treatments can dramatically improve their sleep quality and how they feel. Apnea often goes undiagnosed. It's more than just snoring. People with apnea might never feel rested, even with 8-9 hours in bed, because their sleep is constantly interrupted by breathing issues. So it's important to evaluate if insomnia is truly primary or due to another sleep disorder or health issue. Napping and catching up. Walker notes that while naps can be beneficial for alertness and can supplement sleep for some, they can also be a double-edged sword if you have insomnia. If you nap for too long or too late in the day, you relieve that adenosine pressure that was building, which then makes it harder to fall asleep at night. Thus, those struggling with insomnia are often told to avoid naps altogether to maximize nighttime sleepiness. Once sleep is stable at night, a short early afternoon nap, 20 minutes say, can be integrated without harm if desired, as long as it doesn't start the cycle over again. For someone who sleeps fine at night, a brief nap can improve cognitive function and mood for the rest of the day because it gives a mini reset. But it's context dependent. In fact, cultures with siestas often show no reduction in total night sleep. The nap is an addition. They still sleep approximately 7 hours at night and approximately 1 hour in afternoon. What about those who think they're just bad sleepers? The hopeful message is that almost everyone can improve their sleep with the right approach. It may take some effort and consistency, but the brain is plastic and can learn to sleep well again. Even older adults who haven't slept soundly in years can see improvements with CBTI. It's not necessarily perfect. Some might always be somewhat lighter sleepers, but improving from, say, 4 hours of broken sleep to 6.5 hours of solid sleep could be life-changing in how you feel and function. Walker's overarching point: treat sleep issues seriously and address them with long-term solutions, not quick pharmacological band-aids. Sleeping pills should be a last resort, used briefly if at all, for instance, maybe for a crisis period or acute jet lag if needed. The first line should be behavioral changes and therapy, because those get to the root and equip you with tools that last a lifetime. He also calls for the medical community to pivot. Historically, doctors got little training in sleep and often just prescribe a pill for insomnia because it's quick. But as awareness grows, more doctors and patients are recognizing that a pill doesn't fix the underlying problem and might make it worse. So if you have trouble sleeping, know that there is hope beyond a pill bottle. It might involve some effort to change habits, but your body knows how to sleep sometimes. It's about removing the barriers and relearning trust in the process. With patience and the right guidance, many people can break free from the cycle of bad sleep and enjoy natural, healing slumber again. And that's a victory worth aiming for, given how foundational sleep is to our quality of life. Towards a sleep-friendly society, changing culture and policy. Individual efforts to improve sleep are crucial, but Matthew Walker argues that we also need a broader cultural shift. Society as a whole, our workplaces, schools, healthcare systems, and communities, should recognize the value of sleep and make it easier, not harder, for people to get the rest they need. In this final thematic section, Let's explore Walker's vision for a more sleep-friendly world and some changes that are already happening or need to happen in various sectors. Breaking the stigma. First off, we need to change the way we think and talk about sleep. For too long, the narrative has been, you snooze, you lose, painting those who prioritize sleep as unambitious or lazy. In reality, as we've seen, lack of sleep reduces productivity, creativity, and health. Walker suggests society should flip the script. Bragging about pulling an all-nighter or only sleeping 4 hours should be as frowned upon as boasting about not eating vegetables. It's a sign of poor judgment, not dedication. We should admire those who manage their time such that they can sleep properly, as that often means they'll make better decisions and lead healthier lives. Workplace reforms. Many industries have begun to realize that well-rested employees are safer and more effective. There are notable examples. NASA and the military have studied how strategic naps can improve alertness for pilots and soldiers. NASA found that a 26-minute nap improved a pilot's performance by 34% and alertness by 54%. They incorporate NASA naps in astronaut schedules, and some military operations have nap protocols to reduce fatigue. Corporate world. A few progressive companies like Google have introduced nap pods or dedicated quiet rooms where employees can catch a short nap if needed. Far from reducing productivity, these companies find it refreshes employees and can spark that afternoon creativity and focus. Of course, nap pods alone don't solve chronic sleep deprivation, but it signals a culture that acknowledges humans aren't machines and need rest. Flexible scheduling. Some workplaces are experimenting with more flexible hours or even results-only work environments where it matters what you produce, not whether you clock in at 7 a.m. sharp. This allows night owls to shift slightly later or early birds to start earlier, aligning work times with personal peak times. Overtime and burnout. There's also a push in some circles to limit excessive work hours. Countries like France have even implemented a right to disconnect law that discourages after-hours work emails. While not directly about sleep, such policies can help people safeguard their evening time to relax and sleep without work intruding. Shift work improvements. For industries that must have night shifts, like healthcare, emergency services, transportation, manufacturing, there are calls to structure shifts more humanely. For example, avoid quick turnarounds, where someone works late then has to come in early the next day. Rotate shifts forward, morning to evening to night, which is easier on circadian rhythm than backward, and ensure workers have protected days off to recover. Some places provide higher quality sleeping quarters for night workers to nap on long shifts, like some hospitals now have sleep rooms for doctors on call. Sleep and medicine. Ironically, the medical profession is one where sleep deprivation has been deeply ingrained from medical school through residency and beyond. Long resident physician shifts, 28-hour calls, frequent overnight duties were the norm and are still common in many places despite evidence of increased medical errors. Walker notes the tragic irony. These are the people who, above all, should know better about sleep's importance, yet the system pushes them to the brink, endangering both doctors and patients. The tradition partly traces back to an influential 19th century doctor, William Halsted, who believed in non-stop training but who was reportedly fueled by cocaine, allowing him to stay awake, obviously not a model for safe practice. Change is slow, but it's happening. Some countries and programs have mandated shorter shifts, no more than 16 hours, for example, for residents, and mandatory rest periods. Studies in places that enacted these rules show fewer medical errors, which literally saves lives. Walker advocates for patients to be empowered. If you're about to undergo a major procedure, it's reasonable to ask your doctor or surgeon, "How much sleep did you get last night?" It might feel awkward, but you have a right to a clear-minded practitioner, just as we expect pilots to be well rested.
He also thinks hospitals should adjust to patients' sleep needs better. Often patients in hospitals get terrible sleep due to noise, nightly vital sign checks, etc. Some progressive hospitals now try to cluster nighttime care to allow longer sleep, keep lights low at night, and create a quieter environment. Healing happens best with sleep, so hospitals should facilitate it, not disrupt it unnecessarily. Education system. One of the most actionable changes is in school start times for teenagers. We already discussed how early high school start times conflict with teen biology. In places where they've moved the start from, say, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 or 9 a.m., they've seen improved academic performance, higher test scores, better attention, and less daytime sleepiness means better learning. Improved mental health. Rates of depression symptoms often drop when teens get even 30, 60 minutes more sleep. Fewer car accidents among teen drivers. Studies have shown a significant reduction in morning accidents in districts that delayed start times. Better attendance and graduation rates. Some might worry later start means they stay up even later, but research shows given the chance, teens will sleep longer, not just delay bedtime equivalently. They still might go to bed a bit later if allowed, but total sleep time increases. More and more school districts, especially in the US, are adopting later start times after advocacy from sleep scientists, pediatricians, and parent groups. It's a movement that directly uses sleep science to inform policy. Challenges remain, like adjusting bus schedules or after-school activities, but many find the health and performance benefits outweigh the logistical tweaks needed. Additionally, Walker suggests education about sleep should be part of health curriculum. If students learn young why sleep matters, they may make better choices and carry that into adulthood. It could be as basic as having an assembly where an expert explains sleep's impact or integrating it into biology classes. Transportation and safety. Industries like trucking, airlines, and railways have regulations around rest. For example, airline pilots have mandated maximum duty hours and minimum rest periods. These exist because of past fatigue-related accidents. Truck drivers in many countries have to log their hours and take rest stops, though enforcement and actual compliance vary. More tech solutions like using sensors or cameras to detect drowsiness in drivers are being explored, but ultimately, systemic changes to schedules and strong safety culture are needed. Walker underscores accidents like Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Exxon Valdez oil spill, and many more had sleep deprivation as a contributing factor in human error. Society pays a huge price for fatigue-induced mistakes. By preventing extreme work hours, we might prevent disasters. Legal and policy considerations. Could there one day be laws about adequate sleep? It's tricky because you can't force someone to sleep, but policies can discourage behaviors that harm public safety. For example, DUI laws exist for drunk driving. Some have proposed similar penalties for causing an accident, while known to be severely sleep deprived. Say a trucker falsifying logs or a driver going 24/7 without sleep. Even now, if someone can prove in court that an accident was due to employer forcing overwork, there could be liability. In workplaces, companies could face consequences if they create dangerously fatiguing schedules that lead to incidents. So the pressure is mounting on organizations. Treat employees' sleep as part of safety management, just like equipment maintenance. Technology solutions. Walker also mentions potential tech, like devices that help track sleep and alertness. Wearable trackers are popular, smartwatches, rings that measure sleep. These can give people insight into their patterns and sometimes motivate healthier habits. On a bigger scale, trucking companies might use sensor data to ensure drivers aren't driving drowsy, though privacy and accuracy issues exist. Blue light filtering software like f.lux or night shift modes on phones is a small but widespread tech change directly influenced by sleep science. It's not panacea, but it helps. The future might even see smart home systems that gradually dim lights and change color temperature as it gets late, cueing households to wind down, or alarm clocks that measure your sleep stage and wake you at an optimal time near your set alarm. Some apps do that via movement sensing. These are micro-level things. The macro changes are more about policy and cultural norms. Why it's hard to change. Walker acknowledges that some barriers are economic or cultural. For instance, a 24/7 global economy pushes people to do shift work. Not everyone can just avoid it, but we can mitigate damage by better practices. Also, companies often want employees to work more, not less. Yet, data suggests well-rested workers are more productive in less time. So forward-thinking companies realize it's better to have an employee working 40 focused hours with good sleep than 60 hours of sloppy, error-prone work. It might require a paradigm shift where output is valued over hours input. At a national level, governments could fund public health campaigns about sleep, like campaigns for exercise or anti-smoking in the past. In fact, some health departments have started doing just that, releasing guidelines, using media to encourage sleep as part of a healthy lifestyle. Parental and community role. Communities can help each other too. Parents setting good examples for kids. Community events not running too late into school nights. Media to encourage sleep as part of a healthy lifestyle. Parental and community role. Communities can help each other too. Parents setting good examples for kids. Community events not running too late into school nights. Coaches understanding that scheduling 5 a.m. practices might do more harm than good, etc. We might see a day where someone says, "No, I can't join that late conference call. It's 11 p.m. my time and I'll be asleep." And that's respected rather than frowned upon. A new vision of success. Ultimately, Walker envisions a society where success and sleep go hand in hand. Consider high-powered fields. Currently, there's a myth that to be an A-plus performer, as a CEO, a doctor, an athlete, etc., you must sacrifice sleep. But many top athletes are now vocal about prioritizing sleep as a tool for winning. For example, LeBron James reportedly sleeps 11, 12 hours, Roger Federer about 10, they consider it part of training. Some enlightened business leaders do value sleep, citing that their decision-making is sharper with rest. If more role models in various fields emphasized their healthy sleep, it could help break the sleep deprivation is heroic myth. Imagine a world where bragging rights come from saying, "I always get 8 hours and it makes me better at what I do," that would encourage others to do the same. We also must consider that not everyone has equal luxury to shape their schedules. Low-income workers with multiple jobs, single parents, etc., often sacrifice sleep because they feel they have to. Societal changes, like livable wages, supportive childcare, etc., indirectly could improve population sleep by reducing those stresses and extreme schedules. It's all interconnected. Walker's call is comprehensive, from government policy like later school times and regulated work hours, to corporate culture, valuing employees' health, to personal attitude, seeing sleep as fundamental, not optional. Change won't happen overnight, pun intended, but the conversation has started. The more people learn about the importance of sleep, the more momentum builds to make structural changes that allow people to act on that knowledge. In closing this section and transitioning to a conclusion, embracing a sleep-friendly society could lead to happier, healthier, and more productive communities. We'd likely see reductions in healthcare costs, less chronic illness, fewer accidents, improved learning in schools, and better quality of life all around. The benefits would ripple out broadly. We have tackled diet and exercise on societal levels. Think of gyms, healthy school lunch programs, etc.
And now it's time to tackle the third pillar: sleep. It requires effort, yes, but imagine a world where 8 hours of sleep is the norm and culturally supported. That's a world where people wake up more energized, minds clearer, tempers cooler, and innovation and compassion potentially heightened by well-rested brains. It's a vision worth striving for, one night at a time. Conclusion: embrace sleep for a better life. After journeying through the science and stories of why we sleep, one thing is abundantly clear: sleep is not a luxury or waste of time. It is a profound necessity, as vital to our health as food and water. It is the golden thread that ties together our mental sharpness, emotional well-being, and physical vitality. In this audiobook-style summary, we've learned that sleep enriches our memory, fuels our creativity, regulates our metabolism, fortifies our immunity, and literally keeps our hearts and brains alive longer. It's astonishing to realize that something so simple, closing our eyes and resting, has such a sweeping impact on every facet of our lives. Matthew Walker's message is ultimately an inspiring and empowering one. By prioritizing sleep, we truly can transform our lives. For the student struggling to concentrate, the parent feeling irritable, the executive making critical decisions, the athlete aiming for peak performance, or anyone battling stress and health issues, better sleep is often the missing piece that can elevate good to great or misery to hope. Modern society may have drifted away from respecting sleep, but we as individuals can reclaim it for ourselves. It starts with giving yourself permission to value sleep. Let go of any guilt about turning the lights out early or saying no to that late event. Remember that when you choose to sleep, you are choosing to invest in yourself. You're fortifying your mind and body for tomorrow's challenges. Far from being lazy, getting enough sleep will make you more effective and present in your life. Think of sleep as nature's nurse, teacher, and counselor all in one. Each night, sleep tends to the wounds of the day, both physical and emotional, stitching up the tears in our muscles and soothing the aches in our hearts. It files away our memories neatly and highlights the insights we might need. It rehearses difficult conversations and calms our anxieties. It's like hitting a reset button that clears the clutter and charges us up. If you've been skimping on sleep, it's not too late to change. The body is remarkably forgiving when you start nurturing it again. You might be amazed how much brighter and more manageable life feels after a week or two of consistent, adequate sleep. Problems that seemed unsolvable might reveal solutions once your well-rested brain gets to work. Moods steady out. The world just seems more in balance. On a practical level, consider making some gentle changes. Establish a calming bedtime routine you look forward to, create a sleep sanctuary in your bedroom, and pick a wake-up time that you maintain even on weekends so your inner clock stays steady. These habits, though simple, act like seeds that grow into the sturdy tree of good sleep over time, and under the shade of that tree, you'll find you can handle life's weather, the heat of stress, the storms of adversity with far more resilience. The conclusion of why we sleep is a call to action, but also a call to kindness, to be kind to yourself by giving your mind and body the rest it needs. Imagine looking back at your life years from now and knowing that you lived it with energy, clarity, and emotional richness, rather than in a haze of fatigue. Prioritizing sleep is a key that can unlock that future. Walker even suggests we could think of sleep as a form of personal leadership and self-respect, leading your life such that you care for this fundamental necessity. When you do so, you set a positive example for those around you, your children, colleagues, friends. You silently give them permission to honor their own sleep needs too. In a way, choosing to sleep well is not just a gift to yourself, but to everyone whose lives you touch, because you'll show up as a better version of you. So tonight and every night, remember that the best bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep. Let yourself sleep truly. Let yourself without self-reproach or worry that you should be doing something more productive. Realize that in those quiet hours, you are being profoundly productive. You're rebuilding the very substance of your body and mind.
As you lie down, think of sleep as a trusted old friend, one who has always been there for you even when you ignored it, one who is ready to enfold you in comfort and restore you. All you have to do is surrender to it. Feel the weight of your body sink and the weight of your day lift off your shoulders. With each breath, you're drawing in calm and exhaling tension. In the darkness, your body knows exactly what to do. You're wired for this healing process. In embracing sleep, you embrace a better life. You'll wake up not just tomorrow, but every tomorrow, with more light in your eyes and spring in your step, ready to live, love, learn, and contribute at your fullest potential. That is the power of sleep unlocked. So make a gentle promise to yourself now. Tonight, I will cherish my sleep. And when morning comes, you will greet the day as the healthiest, happiest, and most creative version of yourself. Night by night, you can build the foundation of a life well lived all by the simple, wonderful act of sleeping. Sweet dreams and a brighter waking life await.